Good evening, everybody. I'm going to tell you right now in advance, this is going to be a very difficult game to win. It can be done, but do not expect this to be anything other than Carolina getting blown out or Carolina winning in a nail biter. That's the only two ways I think that it's going to go tonight. I will get to that here shortly. We're 45 minutes from puck drop, so this show's not going to be super long. I'll get to as many of the comments as possible. I wanted to start around 5:30. That just wasn't feasible today, but I wanted to make sure I got a show in because I haven't got to do one in a little bit. So I've been dying to do one. So now we can finally do that. BTS, what's up, dude? Yellow, good to see you, pal. Alrighty. So a little bit about the last game. That was incredibly unfortunate circumstances that we got saddled with. Yes, you're correct, BTS. I'll get to that. With Martin having to come in cold and, face three really good shooters in the shootout and everything. I'm glad Carolina walked away from that game with a point, and this is all I'm going to say about this. One, Sean Walker didn't do anything wrong. The few of you I've seen online saying that, you don't know what you're talking about. And second off, Kochekov made kind of a boneheaded move coming outside of the crease like that. All he had to do was seal the post. Walker had the guy cut off. Kochekov, I hate that he got hurt, but he kind of did it to himself. I'm sorry, but that's the way it is. Hopefully that's something he learns from because you cannot do stuff like that. It's just, that's not on Sean Walker. It's not on Zach Werenski. Kochekov made a mistake and it got him injured. That's all there is to it. So those of you who are online blaming Sean Walker, you're wrong. That's all there is to it. So I'm going to go ahead and get into the slides here. All righty. So this is the first of two meetings between the Carolina Hurricanes and the Dallas Stars. Game one takes place today. They will play again in Dallas on the 21st of January. The Hurricanes are 14-5-0. The Stars are 13-6-0. The Hurricanes are currently second in the Metro Division with a 6-3-1 record over their last 10 games. Dallas 6-4-0 over their last 10 games. They are third place in the Central Division. Carolina doing pretty good at home still so far. Home ice advantage is going to be important tonight. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. 7-1-0, while Dallas is 5-4-0 on the road. So they're just above 500 on the road. So maybe that's something you can take advantage of tonight and win when the odds are against you, especially in net. Overall goal differential, Carolina is plus 27 with 78-4, 51 against. Dallas is plus 22 with 66-4, 44 against. Goals for per game, Carolina has 3.90. They are third in the NHL. And goals against per game, Dallas is 11th in the NHL with 3.42. Goals against per game, Carolina still holding steady here as well. They are in fourth with 2.50. Keep an eye on that column tonight. It's going to be really important if Carolina is going to win this game. And goals against per game, Dallas 2.32. So very seldomly do we see the Hurricanes play against a team that is as stingy defensively as they are. Tonight is one of those nights. Power play. Carolina 24.2% to 16.9% for Dallas. Carolina is 7th in the NHL. Dallas is 22nd. So you have a bit of a gap there. That's probably where Carolina's got their biggest overall advantages in the power play tonight. Penalty kill, Carolina is 83.1. They're in 7th. Dallas 85.7. That says 20th, but that can't be right. Forgive that right there. I think that's something I forgot to correct from the last game because I used the same template. They've got to be higher than that with an 85.7% penalty kill, and they're above Carolina. Disregard it saying 20th. It's probably more like 5th. Special teams net overall, Carolina is 103.7 out of 200 for a total of 53.65. Dallas 51.3%. 102.6 out of 200. So Carolina does have a little bit of an overall special teams net positive. However, that's primarily through the power play and not through the penalty kill. As far as what team's going to do better shorthanded, Carolina's going to get a run for their money tonight. Face-off percentages, Carolina is 7th with 52.6. Dallas sits right at 50, unless I forgot to update that as well. I could be wrong. Please forgive me. Now, some news injuries and scratches here, of course. Jesper Foss is out for the season with a neck injury, but he was shifted to LTIR on Wednesday per Puckpedia. So maybe that could be indicative of a move coming up. We will see. Kochekov, as I alluded to earlier, was injured during the overtime against Columbus Blue Jackets. He is in concussion protocol, so no idea when he'll be back. Don't expect a timetable on that for a little bit. If you remember what it's like when people have had concussions in the past, everybody is different when it comes to this. Seth Jarvis has been activated from IR. He returns tonight. And it is going to be a little bit interesting as far as how the lines are constructed. I understand why they're like this. I will explain in a little bit here why they're like this, why I think they're like this, and they have to be tonight. Frederick Anderson has underwent surgery. Sorry, I have not updated that yet either. He is out for 8 to 12 weeks, and the Canes could be on the goalie market. Stay tuned. With one other caveat, maybe they're looking at something other than a goalie. I don't know, but it could be a possibility. We will see. Because right now with the goalie situation, it kind of sucks because if you knew that either one of our goalies were out for the season, it's a different story. However, it's not that. It's more a case of getting a goalie for stopgap purposes. So that's about it when it comes to that for the time being. We will wait and see what happens there. So team leaders for each team, Jack Roslovic has 12 goals. Martin Necas, 22 assists. Martin Necas also leads the Hurricanes in points with 33, 11 goals and 22 assists. Shane Gostisbehere continues to lead among defensemen with points, 14 total, 4 goals and 10 assists. Andrei Svechnikov with 5 power play goals. Andrei Svechnikov with 69 shots on goal. Jacob Slavin leads the team in blocked shots with 32. Brent Burns recently became the leader in average time on ice with 21-33. On the Dallas side of things, Matt Duchene has 11 goals to lead the team. Mason Marchment has 12 assists. Their leading overall scorer is Matt Duchene with 23 points, 11 goals, and 12 assists. Thomas Hartley with 9 points, 1 goal, 8 assists to lead the team among defensemen in points. Tyler Seguin has 2 power play goals. Logan Stankoven has 58 shots on goal to lead the team. Shots blocked, Esa Lindell. This is someone you're going to hear me talk a lot about tonight. Esa Lindell kind of fills the same role for the Dallas Stars that Jacob Slavin does for Carolina. And then lastly, average time on ice, Miro Haskin, who is their workhorse on defense. Very dangerous player at both ends of the ice. Very dangerous transition player. Really good at walking the line and getting shots on net. Great playmaker, great vision. He's going to be problematic tonight, even if he's not put up a ton of numbers yet. Don't worry, that will come. Hopefully just not tonight. All right, so looking at the NHL Edge data here, you finally ran into a team that's a little bit faster than Carolina with Dallas and that covers a little bit more ice. This may not seem like much. Carolina, 23.34 max speed to 23.65 max speed with Dallas. When you're on a 200-foot by 85 sheet of ice, that can be a huge difference. That's one step that you get to a loose puck before somebody else and make something out of it, or one step you get to a loose puck faster and kill an offensive opportunity before it has the chance to materialize. Keep an eye on that. That's one of the reasons that this game is going to be so hard to win. Skating distance is about the same, 9.25 for Carolina versus 9.34 covered by Dallas. Top per game, 47.70 for Carolina, 48.93 for Dallas. Top per period, 16.64 for Carolina, 17.06 for Dallas. So in terms of speed, Carolina is not going to have the definitive advantage in speed that they normally have. However, they do have enough to match it in any given shift, any given sequence, any given moment. Edge data. This is where, surprisingly, Carolina still has an advantage, even though Dallas has a little bit more with the speed. Looking at the zones here, Carolina spends 47.5% in the offensive zone, as opposed to Dallas spending 42.8%. 18.3 in the neutral zone for Carolina to Dallas's 18.7. Defensive zone, Carolina 34.2% to Dallas's 38.5%. Not spending a lot of the time in the defensive zone tonight is going to be important for a multitude of reasons. One, you have your third string goalie in net with Spencer Martin. If you keep quality chances down, if you don't give up, say, more than 20 shots on goal, Carolina can win this game. It's going to be difficult, but it can be done. And then going on here, one of the things that I want to elaborate on further in regards to not letting Dallas hold the offensive zone for too long is their shooting percentage is actually pretty low, and they're not heavy volume shooters. They've only had 595 shots on goal. They've scored 65 goals total and have a 10.9 shooting percentage, whereas Carolina, 674 shots on goal, 78 goals, and 11.6 shooting percentage. And for Carolina, what they've dealt with in the past, that's actually pretty high. So what would be needed here more than anything, the more you limit Dallas's time in the offensive zone, the better. The less likely they are to score, the less likely they are to shoot, the better. The more you keep them on the perimeter when they are in the offensive zone, the better. Tonight's not one of those nights where you need a ton of clean breakouts where you can go to the other end, get 2 or 3 greasy goals and win, so long as you take care of business in the defensive zone. That's going to be the most important thing tonight, is not allowing Dallas to cycle the puck, not allowing them to work to the middle, all that type of stuff. That's the biggest things you have to worry about against the Stars, until we get to talking about more of the overall depth stuff and the goaltending and everything like that. So 5-on-5 forecast with the lines. As alluded to earlier by BTS here, Seth Jarvis is back in the lineup. Despite losing Kochekov and having Spencer Martin in net, Jarvis is a big boost. Reason being is because he's valuable in all 3 zones of the ice. He can score, he can shut down transition, and he plays good defense in his zone in. He has an excellent 200-foot game, which is why he finished so high in the Selke voting last season. So some of the lines have stayed the same. Svechnikov, Aho, and Roslovic is still the same. This line is interesting to me. Jarvis, Drury, Natchez. I don't know how that's going to work out. I don't think that they should have broken up the Kotkaniemi and Robinson line personally. However, Jackson Blake will be playing with them. I'll get to them in a moment. Martin Stahl, Carrier, been a very good, very consistent line. So it's a good thing that we have that one back now. Calm down. Sorry, my dog's being crazy. He does this on stream. Lay down. Lay down. Good boy. I'll get you a treat later if you be calm. But Martin Stahl, Carrier, pretty good line. They've been really consistent. We're going to look at their numbers here in a moment. Robinson, Kotkaniemi, and Blake. So essentially, it's the exact same thing as the Robinson, Kotkaniemi, and Natchez line, except you have Jackson Blake there. And I think one of the reasons why Rod has distributed the forwards like this is so that you picked a hell of a time to play with your toy, buddy. One of the reasons why Rod has distributed the lines like this is he's trying to balance out the offensive capability and the defensive capability over all four of the forward lines. The reason being is because lay down. You're making me mad. Sorry about that, guys. Dog's breaking my concentration. But yeah, so excuse me 1 second. All right, sorry about that. The dog actually had a reasonable request. He was out of water. So anyway, so the reason Rod has these forward lines split up the way that they're split up, I think, is to balance out the defensive capability of each of them, because you're going to need your depth to win tonight. This isn't one of those games where you can have the Aho line take over and probably win, or one of those games where you strictly have the Martin Stahl Carrier line, shut down the other team and win. This is going to be, everyone's got to pull the cart tonight. Defense, of course, stays the same. Slavin, Burns, Orlov, Chatfield, Gostisbehere, Walker, and Spencer Martin in net. So another thing I want to say in regards to the Martin Stahl Carrier line, I'll elaborate on this a little bit more in a minute, but that line, expect them to see a ton of offensive zone faceoffs and defensive zone faceoffs. Offensive zone faceoffs to be able to eat possession and shut down Dallas from getting out of their own end as much as possible, and at the other end to defend well when Dallas does set up and try to make some offensive opportunities. The Martin Stahl Carrier line, don't be surprised if they're up near the top in 5-on-5 TOI tonight. They're going to be very busy. All right, so looking at the lines here, Svechnikov, Aho, Roslovic, that line is starting to look a little bit better. I'm still not a big fan of Aho and Svechnikov being paired together, but they finally got above a 50% goals percentage thanks to Jack Roslovic's goal in the last game. Martin Stahl Carrier, like I said, they're going to be relied on heavily to shut down the other team tonight. Slavin, Burns, Orlov, Chatfield, Gostisbehere, Walker. Orlov and Chatfield in particular are going to be leaned on a lot tonight, and I mean a lot. So between them and the Martin Stahl Carrier line, they're going to have the toughest matchups available, but all matchups are going to be tough tonight, not just some of them. So Slavin and Burns, they've transitioned to be, like I said, more of a shutdown pair than a safety valve with an offensive threat pair. Tonight would be a really good night for Burns to start getting the offense going. And then Gostisbehere and Walker, the more offensive zone draws, the better. Those guys need to put up some points while they're there as much as possible. Tonight's one of those nights where if you can get an early lead and not have to chase the game, it's going to be even better. And like I said about Martin Stahl and Carrier, don't expect them to see taking a ton of neutral zone faceoffs. Most of the time, offensive zone and defensive zone faceoffs, especially in critical moments in the game, that line will probably be out there for a lot of those. Now, in terms of possession and everything, Carolina still looks really good in all those. If I'd had time, I would have put together this for the lines on the other team. Sometimes I'll be able to do that. Sometimes I won't. It's going to be mostly weekday games or weekend games where I'm able to have time to do that. But I did update the numbers and everything like that. The strikeout font, of course, is for lines that aren't playing tonight. So Svechnikov, Aho, and Roslovic, I'm not expecting that line to put up a ton of numbers tonight. If they manage to, all the better. But tonight's one of those nights where I think the depth scoring and the defense is going to be what ultimately makes the difference as far as goals go. All right, goalie matchup. Of course, Dallas has an advantage here. Jake Ottinger is one of the best goalies in the league, in my opinion. Spencer Martin, we only have so much of a sample size of him between last season and this season. If he's going to prove something, this is the week to do it, and this is the game to start it right here. So he has a goals against average of 3.21 and a save percentage of 0.870. If he manages to improve those numbers significantly tonight, if he gets closer to a 900 save percentage or a 2.99 goals against average, he's had an outstanding night. And Carolina has won this game if that happens, I believe. Jake Ottinger, of course, 2.23 goals against average, save percentage of 0.98 in 14 games played. Then also looking at the goals against chart here, Jake Ottinger, he's not giving up a ton from the point where Carolina likes to shoot from. He's not even giving up a ton from the high slot, where it looks like Jake Ottinger is wanting to give up most of his goals in that high danger area right in front of the crease and right in the blue paint itself. So one of the best things Carolina can do, continue the formula of shooting the puck from the point, but just don't fire it into the goalie's chest. Try to shoot low for a rebound. Let guys get there, pick up the garbage, and throw it into the net. There's a multitude of things Carolina can do tonight to make that happen, but it's all going to be relying on heavy offensive zone pressure, smart pinching, going to the front of the net. Tonight's one of those nights where Carolina just really has to battle. They're a team that's built on effort. Tonight's one of those nights where they really have to have an identity game and play that way if they're going to beat Jake Ottinger. Limit opportunities at the other end at Spencer Martin. That's the best way that they can win this game. Spencer Martin's given them up mostly. He's not given up. He's not played enough to really have a big sample size here, but you see where he's given them up mostly on the chart here. But the big thing to focus on here is limiting how much rubber Spencer Martin sees and going down there and getting 3 or 4 greasy goals against Jake Ottinger. You're not going to get a lot of clean looks against him because of how good Dallas is defensively. You're also not going to you're also not going to just snipe him in a lot of occasions. He's just way too good of a goalie to be able to do that, and the defense in front of him is really good as well. Now, I'm going to go back to the lines here. I wanted to talk about that for a moment for a reason. Now, their first line, Jason Robertson, Rope Hintz, and Wyatt Johnston. That is a very dangerous line, particularly Robo, because he's got a really good way of finding open ice, sneaking away and being gone, sneaking in behind the defense, catching a stretch pass from someone like Heiskanen and being gone. And before you know it, at the other end, he scores. That's that. Wyatt Johnson has developed into a very dynamic forward himself. Rope Hintz, he is like a pretty good but not as good version of Sebastian Aho. Excellent two-way game. Definitely a guy that could be in the Selke conversation at one point or another. And he drives a lot of play. He drives a lot of puck possession on that line through defense. Then you look at their second line, Mason Marchment, Matt Duchene, Tyler Seguin. Marchment adds a physical edge to that line right there. Tyler Seguin, even though he's on the back nine, is still a pretty dangerous goal scorer. Matt Duchene, same thing for him. Great playmaker, great goal scorer, great center, helps to drive possession by making smart defensive plays, but he's also incredibly dangerous in the offensive zone, and he's really good at finding open ice. That third line, Ben Bork, Stankoven, that's size, that's strength, that's speed. They're very fast. They will throw hits, especially Ben. And then lastly, Box, Steele, and Dadonov for a fourth line. Very solid fourth line. So with Dallas, they have a pretty definitive first, second, third, and fourth line with this lineup, but they're all really good lines, whereas Carolina has clearly evened out their roster to try and counteract this. Now, when you go onto their defense, Lindell, Heiskanen, that line right there, or that pair right there, is designed to serve a very similar purpose as Slavin and Burns is for Carolina. Esa Lindell is one of the best shutdown defensemen in the game. Miro Heiskanen needs no introduction. There are nights where he's basically like another Cale Makar. But he's also really, really solid on the defensive side of things. If you ask me who the best two-way defenseman in this league is, Miro Heiskanen is in that conversation. Their second pair is also really good. Thomas Harley, Ilya Lyubushkin. kind of the same dynamic. Harley's the puck mover, the more offensive guy, but still plays good defense. Labushkin does the shutdown side of things on the right side for them there. And then lastly, former Hurricane, Brendan Smith and Matt Dumba. Again, kind of the same dynamic where Smith is the shutdown guy, the safety valve. Matt Dumba's more of a puck mover. If Carolina has an advantage tonight, it's with the Gostisbehere-Walker pair, the third pair, if that's what you want to call it, when compared to the Smith and Dumba pair. They're a lot better. As far as the top four on both of these charts, it's pretty damn even. So that's one of the things where Carolina is really going to have to focus on maybe trying to take on that third pair when they can. That's where having last change comes into play for the Hurricanes. So if they can take advantage of that, they'll be in good shape and they have a legitimate chance to win this game. All righty. So let's ignore that one right there. All right. So the last slide that I have right here, overall advantages. I still was able to say too close to call with this, even though if I had to lean one direction or another, I would say Dallas just because of the goaltending aspect of things. If Seth Jarvis was not back in the lineup, I would have said the overall advantage in this game goes to Dallas. But since we got Jarvis back, a guy who's valuable in all three zones, then we're in good shape. So overall 5-on-5 play, offense and defense, this was really close, but ultimately I gave the edge to Carolina because of Jarvis being back in the lineup. High-producing forwards, Dallas has the advantage there primarily because of Robertson. That's the biggest reason I gave them that advantage. That was close for me, too, because I was thinking about how good Necas has been lately. We haven't had Martin Necas producing at this rate before in the past, not for this long of a period of time, but even then, I was like, Dallas overall probably has more weapons up front, especially when you're talking about the combined scoring of Hintz, Ben, Sagan, so on and so forth. You throw all those guys in there, and then overall, they do have a little bit more punch up front in terms of who can produce offense for them. Overall forward depth, again, this was another thing I probably would have said Dallas has the advantage on if it wasn't for Jarvis coming back in the lineup. But I will say the Hurricanes have the overall lineup advantage when you're talking about forward depth. It's close, but Carolina does have the advantage there. So all six defensemen, I give Carolina the advantage there strictly on the third pair. The Walker and Gostisbehere pair is very dynamic. It's more likely to put up points, but it's also very likely to be able to defend well. They split the defensive responsibilities. Gostisbehere and Walker do. They split them about 50-50, and both those guys can move the puck. Both of them can shoot and score. Gostisbehere in particular is a really good playmaker. So that right there, the Smith-Dumba pairing versus the Gostisbehere-Walker pairing is the biggest reason why I gave the Hurricanes the advantage there. Power play unit one, I gave Carolina a close advantage in that as well because of how well the first unit has worked for a lot of the season, but that was close too. I could have easily said Dallas for that one. It was a tough call. Overall power play, Dallas, as far as both units goes, I think is the better team with two power play units. Penalty kill, I gave this to the Hurricanes just because it's going to be tested tonight. I probably should have wrote close next to that, but this is one of those nights where I think the Hurricanes penalty kill is really going to show up. It would be higher up if it wasn't for all the 5-on-3s they've had to kill, of which a couple of them have been pretty questionable, but I'm going to give Carolina a close advantage in penalty killing. It's neck and neck in that, though. If there's one thing that these two teams are going to be really close, and it's going to be in the penalty kill. Goaltending, Dallas, advantage there. Obvious reasons. You have a third-string goalie versus against one of the best guys in the league, so they have it pretty good there. But overall, I would say that this game is too close to call and to give definitive advantages to. Score and prevent, I didn't even bother doing that for this one because let me go ahead and take this off the board because I don't think there's anything else here. Yep, nope, that's it for this particular presentation. All right, so basically what it comes down to is with this, Carolina needs to make this a low-event game. They need to probably hold Dallas to 2 goals or less, and they probably win. But they also got to keep producing at the other end the way that they have. So that's about the best that you can hope for tonight, probably. I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I'm actually very confident that they can win this game. However, it's going to take some work. It's going to take some elbow grease. Don't expect a pretty win. And like I said, the only 2 outcomes I see there being tonight is either Carolina gets blown out or Carolina wins by 1 goal. Not counting empty netters. That's the only 2 ways I see it going tonight, just primarily because of 1, the goaltending situation, and 2, you're playing against an incredibly good team that in a lot of ways is not too dissimilar from Carolina. And what I mean by that is they're very defense first, and they prioritize building depth over star power. So it's like when I think about who I think the best players on Dallas are, I think of Jason Robertson and Miro Heiskanen, 2 of my favorite non-Hurricanes. Throw Esa Lindell in there too. But when you think about this team, they don't have Connor McDavid, Austin Matthews, so on and so forth, kind of like what is often said about the Hurricanes. But what they do have is depth. What they do have is 18 guys who all pull the cart. They have really good goaltending to go on top of that. So, yeah, Esa Lindell doesn't put up a ton of points, but you know what he does? He defends at a rate that's not too far below Slavin. Jason Robertson's one of the best wingers in the league. Rope Hintz is one of the best two-way centers in the league. So basically, this is almost a pound-for-pound matchup. Actually, I would like to go back to the lines here for just 1 minute to show you what I'm talking about. So, for example, we have Roslovic, they have Robertson. We have Aho, they have Ince. They have Johnston, we have Jarvis, for an example. Overall, the center depth here, I think, would actually favor Dallas a little bit more. But what it comes down to is pound for pound, these teams can match up with each other. So if we had Kochekov or Anderson in net tonight, maybe I'm feeling a little bit better about it. But the best thing they can do is take advantage of that they have last change since they're at home, dictate as many of the matchups as possible. I'll go ahead and take this off the screen here. Dictate as many of the matchups as possible. Last change is going to be their best friend tonight. Limit shot opportunities and keep them on the perimeter when they are in the offensive zone. Don't give them any clean looks. Like I said, Dallas only has a 10.6 shooting percentage. If you keep them from shooting the puck, you probably win this game. That's the best bet if you ask me. So I'm going to get ready to log off here. Let me see. Oh, we got one other comment right here. All Canes Network says can't listen due to being at the game, but I hope Martin somehow steals the game tonight. I don't think he'll have to steal it so much. If the defense in front of him plays well enough, if they limit the high danger chances and ultimately just limit shots, because Dallas does not have a high shooting percentage, and they're not volume shooters either. If you limit those things, Carolina can win this game despite the circumstances. And they need a little bit of a bounce back because that Columbus one, it was a kind of rough way to end that one. I mean, they didn't start that game on time and it cost them. And they didn't play a full 60 in Columbus and it cost them. But now they're back home and they can regroup because they got a tough week ahead of them because you play the Rangers Wednesday, then you play Florida back-to-back over the weekend. So this is a good time to get back in the saddle and start doing things right. All right, everybody, thank you for joining me. I will try to do damage report after the game. I will see if I can, but I'm going to grab me a sparkling water. I'm going to relax. I'm going to watch the game. I will try to text intermission radars as well. Y'all take care. I will see you after the game, hopefully.